Okay. So yeah, hey, I'm Jiri, CEO and founder of Matchmade. If you don't know what Matchmade is, then Matchmade is an intelligent, data-driven influencer marketing platform. I used to live in California, and I used to make these presentations that were very like inspirational, you know, like very low on content, but trying to be funny and trying to give a lot of like good sound bites. But now I live in Germany, and there's no fun allowed. everything is factual, data-driven, serious. So this presentation is only going to be numbers and graphs. So the kind of function of this presentation is that whenever I show a new slide, you take a photo and then you look at it when you get home. All right. My background is not in marketing, my background is not in data, but I've been in this industry for quite a while. So this is now year 16 for me. My background is in engineering, so I've worked on mobile games, like the very earliest kind of third-party games where you would have like these like 80 by 60 pixel screens, black and white, you know, Java games for Nokia phones. I worked in games media, was the CTO of a Finnish games media company. I've been a producer for console games, producer for PC games. I've founded companies, I've sold companies. The previous one was acquired by Walt Disney Interactive. So I was the youngest Disney vice president for a couple of years. And now for the last several years, I've been running a company called Shark Punch. And Shark Punch initially started as an indie game studio. We made a game called The Master Plan, which is this kind of bank robbery simulator. And when we were doing The Master Plan, we started talking to a lot of indie gaming studios. And we started talking about game discovery and how do we find the right audience for a specific game. So we first started kind of like attacking that problem with a thing called Playfield, which was a consumer-facing kind of content curation platform. So what we did with Playfield is that we would analyze a lot of gaming content, and we would try to figure out which content is interesting to a specific person. That didn't work. It was a disaster. We spent a lot of money, not the show for it. But when we were doing that, we started working with influencers, and we realized that we had something pretty unique. So we have built this system that allows us to go through every single YouTube gaming video, and we can identify for each video, like, what is the video about? Which game is the video about? What's the audience engagement? And based on this data, we can do a lot of pretty interesting things. And this presentation is basically going to be me sharing some of that data with you. So, as I said, we index every single YouTube gaming video, but we only look at the ones that have over 5,000 views for this presentation to keep things a little bit cleaner. And we also run YouTube influencer marketing campaigns, so we have a lot of data on performance of actual campaigns. So I will take some of this data and share it with you. Why this matters? Well, this is something that was kind of already touched upon, but I mean, obviously influencer marketing can give you great results. So you can, this is just example numbers from some of the campaigns we've done. Your mileage may vary, but I mean, in general, we see that with influencer marketing campaigns, if you do it right, you can attract super high quality users. So really great conversions, really great monetization, really great retention. So I think it's a channel that everybody should be looking at. There's also some other benefits. So there's the whole organic lift that was touched upon in the previous one. So here's some examples from some of our campaigns. So the first one is comparing the kind of number of organic installs that we would see on top of the attributed installs that we could actually track reliably. And as you can see, for example, for What the Hen, we have Philip, the CEO of the company here in the audience. We've seen a pretty nice boost in the number of organic installs for that game. Another interesting thing is that YouTube influencer campaigns can really drive a lot of reviews, a lot of engagement in the App Store. So the bottom graph is from one of our customers as well. And you can see in the beginning here, you can see that when they launched their game, they got global launch featuring from Apple, which gave them, you know, quite a lot of reviews, decent reviews, like the green ones are 5 stars, 4 stars. But interesting thing is that then, like way later, we ran a campaign with them, and you can see that actually the number of reviews they got when the first videos went live is actually higher than the number of reviews they got when they got global featuring from Apple. And the other thing is that the reviews are really great. I mean, like you get amazing 5-star reviews. And this is something that's like, it's kind of hard to quantify, kind of hard to predict, but it's like when you're considering your like different marketing channels, then I doubt that traditional performance-based ads would drive these kinds of reviews that you can get from working with influencers. Anyway, so now the data. YouTube gaming is pretty large, first of all. So there's soon going to be about 1.4 million active YouTube gaming channels. And as you can see, it's not slowing down. So we're already like, there's 50% more at this point than there were end of last year. So this is still like accelerating actually. YouTube gaming is not, not about to become like a stable thing. It's still growing extremely fast, and that's not going to change. And what I think is amazing is that most of these channels are actually actively creating content. So our definition is that if a channel has posted new content in the last, I think, 90 days, then we consider them active. And you can see that over 80% of the channels are still actively posting stuff. And what I think is amazing is that when we look at the average lifetime of a channel that is no longer posting content, the average one would still keep posting stuff for 3 years before they stopped. So I think it's really like when you work with influencers, like you should assume that most of them are in it for the long term, for the long run, which means that you should also be kind of trying to establish like really like long-lasting relationships, because they will keep at it, and maybe they will grow, and maybe you will grow with them. Obviously, most of these channels are tiny. So if we look at this, the majority of the channels have between 10 to 100 subscribers, and let's be honest. Like if a channel with 10 subscribers makes a video about your game, that will probably not change anything at all. But then when we look at the kind of the actual aggregate number of views that you can get across all these different size groups, you can see that the majority of views on YouTube videos is for channels that are somewhere between 100K and 10 million subscribers, which admittedly is fairly broad. But I think what this graph kind of illustrates that to get the most bang for your buck, you really want to be looking at this kind of like 100K to 1 million or 1 million plus range, and probably just ignore everybody else. And you can see that the really big guys, the 10 million plus channels, like they're actually like, compared to all the other channels, they're not driving that many views, which means they're not driving that many installs either. Of course, if your situation is that you just want to get one video that you can take to your boss and impress them, then of course that's the moment where you find the biggest possible YouTuber you can work with, so you give them a lot of money, and then you pray that they don't dress up as Hitler or whatever they might decide to do that day. Not referring to PewDiePie, obviously. But I mean, the reality is, and I think this is something that many other speakers will also say, that the reality is that if you work with the guys who have over 10 million subscribers, then you're not the one who's driving that relationship. Like, you don't know what the hell's going to come out of it, but probably you're not going to get the kind of results that you're paying for. So it's usually not worth it. All right. So then if we look at the kind of the types of people you can reach, well, first of all, like obviously, many of the YouTubers are US-based, or they claim they are US-based. The reality is that this is not the actual case. I mean, like, there's kind of a trend that many YouTubers from smaller countries will say that they are American because they think that helps them reach an American audience. Maybe that's true, maybe that's not. But you can still kind of get like the overall shape. So you can see that, yes, the US is huge, Brazil is huge, Britain is big, Spain, Russia, blah, 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 blah. But you can also see that, for example, you have Japan and Korea, which are supposedly not that big on YouTube. You can see that they're actually driving quite a lot of views, especially when you compare the kind of the ratio of views to subscribers. You can see that actually in Japan and Korea, you can get a lot of eyeballs for your videos. So if those are markets that work for you, for your game, then I think it really makes sense to really try to work with influencers there. It's going to be hard, but it might be worth it. Now the thing, and this was also mentioned in the previous presentation, the thing is that if you just talk with a YouTuber and you ask them like, hey, where's your audience from? And they say, oh yeah, American. That might be the case. So these are screenshots from Matchmade. These are influencers we actually work with. And you can see the one on the left. So that's an American YouTuber. And you can see most of their audience is from the United States, followed by UK, Canada, Australia, other English-speaking countries. And this is probably your expectation when you approach a US-based influencer, that this is the people you're going to reach. Similarly, then the second one is a Russian YouTuber. Who can they reach? Well, they can reach Russian people, Ukrainians, Kazakhstanese people, whatever, like as you would expect. Third one, Spanish guy. You can reach Spain, Mexico, Argentina, etc. This all makes sense. This is all what you would expect. But then the person on the right, also US-based influencer, same as the first one. But suddenly now, 15% of their audience is from the US. Second biggest group is Russia, followed by Poland, followed by Germany. And these, if you would just ask these influencers, like, hey, who's your audience? They would both say, like, oh yeah, Americans. Absolutely not true. So I think when you work with influencers, it's super, super important to always work with actual data. Like, don't be happy with whatever they tell you, because it might be in their interests to have you believe that you are reaching Americans when in reality you're reaching a lot of Russians, and that might have a pretty big impact on your return on investment. Then there's just some interesting data on differences by country. So I'm not going to get like super deep into this, but you can see that obviously there are some countries where PC is not really a thing at all. You can see that in India, handheld consoles are not a thing at all. You can see, of course, that mobile is huge in the countries you would expect it to be huge and blah, blah, blah. But I'm not going to get into this. Just take your photo. Come ask me about it later. That's going to be more useful for all of us. Take the photo. All right. When we look at the kind of like the profile of the audience, the demographics, it's kind of what you would expect, right? So, with YouTube, you can reach male millennials. That's that. Obviously, like there's still like almost 1/3 are women. And I think one interesting pattern that we've seen is that for every single channel that we've looked at that has more than 50% women subscribers, they have a female host or a female co-host. Like no exceptions. So basically, if you have a game that really appeals to the female audience, then I think it makes complete sense to work mostly with female influencers as well. I think on the age side, I'm already too old for YouTube. I guess many of us actually are. But yeah, I mean the reality is that YouTube is for young people, and that's not going to change. So I mean, I don't know if anybody has a game that really monetizes well with people 45 plus. Do you? No. So yeah. Anyway, then on some trends. YouTube gaming is Minecraft. there's nothing else. You could remove every single other game from YouTube gaming, and you would still be looking at 70,000 channels. So this is kind of ridiculous. Like Minecraft is, what is it now, 8 years old, and it's bigger than anything else on YouTube by a fairly fucking large margin. Obviously, like followed by the usual suspects. Of course, GTA 5 is there, and thank God Clash Royale, thank God Supercell is there. But I guess this is kind of like what you would expect, right? If we look at mobile, Minecraft is still there, but not the biggest anymore. So now we have two Minecrafts that are both in the graph. We have Story Mode and we have Minecraft Pocket Edition. As in mobile gaming in general, Supercell is very dominant. But I don't have the graph for this, but I think there's an interesting opportunity for developers right now where we can see that both Clash Royale and Clash of Clans are starting to peak on YouTube. They're not growing, they might even be diminishing, which means that there's a billion channels. Not really. There's I don't know. There's tens of thousands of channels that only play Clash Royale or Clash of Clans, and many of those channels are seeing their numbers decline, and they're actively looking for something new to play. So I think if you happen to have a game that really appeals to people who play Clash Royale, then now might be the time to really like just go all in, invest heavily in influencer marketing, because you might see some pretty good results. What else? Consoles are bigger than you would expect, but this is actually based on the fact that our analysis looks at whether a specific game is available on a platform. So console games are a lot bigger than you would expect, and console games are not very actively marketed on YouTube. So I think that's another opportunity. Like if you have a game that's available on console, you should probably look into spending money with influencers. The bad thing, of course, is that it's kind of hard to track what the results are. But the audience is definitely there. People don't like mobile gaming videos, which is unfortunate, but obviously like this is kind of a symptom of many mobile games just not being designed for YouTube. So obviously the videos are going to be shorter. They're not often visually as impressive as a console game or a AAA PC game might be. But I think we're now seeing that a lot of developers are taking YouTube and streamers and influencers into account when they build the game. And we were seeing this with some of the companies we work with. Like if you have, exciting, engaging gameplay, if you have multiplayer, if you have exciting visuals, then you will do a lot better with influencers. So I think this graph is slowly changing. Like mobile gameplay videos are definitely growing on YouTube and growing very fast. Then yeah, what's happening right now? So this is comparing the number of channels that covered a specific game in the last 2 months and contrasting that with the previous 2-month period. And obviously, I mean, everybody knows that PUBG is this year's phenomena in gaming, like fastest growing thing ever, right? And that's reflected in YouTube. But what I think is really goddamn scary is that the third one is Minecraft. Still, I mean, so Minecraft added almost as many channels like this year as did the fastest growing game ever. And this is a game that's been on YouTube forever. This is a game that's by wide margin the biggest game on YouTube at all. And it's still growing like crazy. Another interesting thing is that you can see that for example, a bunch of the new Nintendo games, they got heavy featuring, like a lot of visibility on YouTube when they were launched, and then they just disappeared. And yeah, take a photo, ask me about it later. And then finally, trying to predict what's next. Again, PUBG is off the charts, and if I showed you the full, like not cropped graph, you wouldn't even see the other lines. Like PUBG is just fucking huge. But there's some interesting ones. I mean, for example, like you can see that Crash Bandicoot really took off. Fortnite really took off. And you can see that there's a couple of sports games that are like slowly grinding up. And then of course, like the kind of interesting stuff is on the right. Because here you can see a couple of games that have just recently started on that upward curve. And it'll be interesting to see where these games are half a year from now or a year from now. And yeah, maybe if you're working on a game, if you're planning to release something pretty soon, then I would pay attention to what kind of games have that effect, that have that kind of like exponential growth, and see if you have something similar. And if you do, then I would look into working with influencers. And that is all. Thank you. Do we have time?
Yes, we have. Yeah, I changed the microphone and then nothing happens. Yeah, you have some time for some questions.
Okay. Anyone? There's over there in the corner. Go for it. Then.
Is there a way to verify that outside?
I will have to promote my stuff right now, because yes, if you work with us, then yes, it's verified. You will see the actual audience numbers. So I mean, basically, if you work directly with influencers, they will often refuse to give you any kind of like actual data, or they will give you screenshots that you can't verify. We don't work with influencers unless they give us direct access to their YouTube analytics. So we know for every single person we work with, we know exactly who the audience is and how the audience has been changing. But I mean, I think with direct deals, there's always going to be a heavy kind of element of trust, and you can't really do much about that. Just try to find people you actually trust and work with them.